No
Yo,
Ideas
we want to
Original.
welcome to the No Ideas Original podcast. Snipes Murdock. What's up, Snipes? How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Appreciate you pulling up to participate in this conversation. I know through my cousin Zane that how you call it. You got some roots in New Jersey, but where originally is your family from? And what's your family roots?
The roots is Caribbean. Like my father is Jamaican and his whole side of the family, and my mother is Cuban and that whole side of the family. And then when they came to the States, they moved to New York and Queens, specifically South Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of where the origins of my family being in the States are. But most of my family is in the Caribbean now. Like I met a whole bunch of relatives in Cuba. The times I went, it's crazy. It tripped me out. I really need to go out there. It's like one of the few untouched like Caribbean islands, man. Like if you really want to go and just feel what it is to be Caribbean, not have no kind of like crazy tourist vibes. There's
Actually,
I'm
gonna be I'm going to Cuba in June. I've never been, so I'm looking forward to experiencing it.
I love it. And be prepared to disconnect. This ain't no like I'm gonna be on Wi-Fi streaming and all that shit. Like dead all of that. Like no internet, no nothing. Like the only time you get internet, you gotta do like a prepaid card and you gotta go to the center of town and wait to get online and then make sure whatever you need to do is within that prepaid card because you're done for the day and go about your business. But I love that though.
So you was going back to Cuba before, like they kind of loose, because now I know they more lax with travel to Cuba, but it was a period of time where you couldn't even really get into Cuba like that.
Yeah, they were lax, and then they got stiff again. Because I think when Trump got in office, he kind of pulled back on a lot of that. So I know it was kind of difficult then, but the reason why I can move a little bit more freely is because I can state on the documents that I have relatives over there. So it's a good reason for me to go over there. But everybody else is like, you just got to say like it's educational purposes or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I've heard that. Where do you go when you're in Cuba? Like, where do you go? Havana?
Yeah, a lot of people go to Old Havana, where that's the tourist thing, where you see the colorful like 60s cars and all of that. And it's a vibe. It's like you stepping back into a time machine because they don't have a lot of resources because of all the embargoes or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people are still like happy and flowing, you know what I mean? Even though they don't got a lot. And I think that's dope. I think that's like a good reminder to like all of us up here when we be complaining about little shit and it's like, yo, my roof just caved in because the storm was going crazy. You know what I mean? Like it kind of put a lot of things in perspective when you go out there. And I have a good ass time. Like I don't gotta do nothing crazy. I don't gotta worry about nothing. The crime is next to nothing out there because nobody trying to get shot over some dumb shit. Like they don't play when it comes to crime out there, and low key they don't really play when it comes to racism either. It's not really like a thing over there, because Castro kind of wasn't having that. It's when a lot of Cubans come out to America where they start vibing with that whole. If you mad light, then you start vibing.
Colorism.
Yeah, exactly. But over there, it's like, look, we all fucked up. So
I've always heard like that they got like really good teachers and doctors. That the education system over there is like first rate. I've heard people say that.
Yeah, because everything is free. You can get to your master's and not pay for nothing, which is like, if a country like Cuba can do it, why can't we? You know what I mean? So. That's just, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of educated folks. I'm not sure how they like assign duties to folks and stuff like that. Like, okay, you can be a doctor. Here's your path. Be blessed. Or you gonna be a lawyer or whatever the case may be. Be blessed. But that is true. That is definitely true that they got that.
Yeah. What made you decide to get into content production?
Well, I always had a thing for just entertainment, just in general. I think it really started in music, which is how I know your cousin. We was like little teenagers rapping and shit.
Yeah.
And you know, I studied a lot of music theory, all of that stuff. So the group that we had, I was doing a lot of the production, and we kind of took it from there. And it was just grinding from there, but it was just a way to sort of express myself because I couldn't under normal circumstances. So just music, videos, it was kind of like what I was seeing musically. You know what I mean? So the thing kind of meshed together. It kind of evolved from that, but it really started with my love for music and sort of making my ideas sonically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you pick up the camera, man, or how'd you get to that point?
Oh man, we, like I said, we started off doing music, and we, you know, we was kind of cooking up a little bit as far as, you know, getting some attention or whatever, and so I knew we needed a music video, so statute of limitations done ran out on this, so I could say it. So I basically ran up in a department store. I ain't gonna say what the name is, and stole a camera. And then from there, I just spent the whole week, you know, just studying it, like how am I gonna use it, like how to shoot, and like watching videos that are out now and trying to sort of copy it. And so from there, I was just like, wow, this is like I can express the thoughts that I'm seeing in my head with the camera, and I can do it like this, and this is another way to sort of tell a story. So I was hooked from there, but it came out of a necessity to basically like do music videos for the group that we was in.
So tell us, what exactly does, for people who may not know, what exactly does a producer do, and what exactly does an executive producer do?
Okay. And when it comes to music, or when it comes to content?
For tell us for both, for music and for film or video content.
Well, they're kind of related as far as the, I guess, general definition, which basically is like you're assembling things together to create a specific product, whatever that is, whether it's music or whether it's content. So if it's music, it's like you're getting the musicians, you may be the musician, but if you're getting other musicians, if you're getting the studio, you know the song, you know how to arrange it. Basically, you're sort of the mastermind of whatever that song is, or songs or album, or whatever the case may be, or what you're producing. You may have the track and you get the artist pulled in. It's sort of, you know, the overseer of whatever that particular piece of music and or content is. So that's how I kind of see it. Obviously there's like differences of what you're assembling together when it comes to like content, like films and TV and things of that nature. I'm finding the editors, I'm finding the director if I'm not going to direct, or casting the talent, scoring the music, stuff like that. Basically putting together everything that is needed to tell the story. So a producer, regardless of what the media is, they're putting everything together to tell the story. And as far as versus an executive producer, then that's just in ranking, basically. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones. Usually, there's a specific duty that comes with it. Like a lot of people, when they're executive producers, they're the ones responsible for the money, the budget that's come in, so they can allocate it to whoever needs it. Or it's the person from the studio or the network or whatever the case may be, their involvement, their hands-on involvement from the network bias onto whatever the project is. And that's pretty much it. They more have a sort of holistic view, whereas the producer probably gets a little bit more in the weeds than the executive producer does.
Okay.
So out of all of the things you do, because it seems like it's a lot involved, which parts do you enjoy the most?
It's gonna sound corny, but all of it, really. And that's why I kind of do it, because there's so many different things that I'm able to leverage when it comes to the things I've worked on creatively. You know what I'm saying? So like sometimes there's a project, like a good friend of mine, she did a short film and she wanted scoring and a soundscape for it. And I just came on board just to do that. You know what I mean? And I love to express myself that way. Or it's, sort of plug and play, whatever the project sort of calls for. And I sort of like having that freedom and flexibility to adapt when necessary for whatever is best for the project at the time. So there's a little bit of everything that I like when it comes to, that's why I do it, to do all of that stuff. And I think it helps when you're relating to people whose specifically is their job. Like I've edited a lot before, but I wouldn't call myself a full out editor as opposed to other folks that are editors, but I can relate to them because I know what it takes to do a lot of what they do. So I'm able to communicate with them better. Same thing with an actor. Like I've done the auditions, I know that work, and I know what is expected of an actor from my point of view. So it gives me a point to sort of communicate with them with that. So that's also another advantage of kind of like doing a lot of the duties and not just sticking to one.
What do you think about given your experience as a producer, an executive producer, what do you think about the TUBIs of the world? You turn on TUBI and it's become a platform to give everybody an opportunity to have content. Like we see a lot of films that maybe potentially may not have seen the light of day, but as a result of TUBI, we have people who are able to make these dreams come true. Like, put their ideas on film and put them out to the world. So what's your thoughts on the TUBI?
For me, I love it. You know what I mean? To do what they do. However, I know that a lot of stuff on TUBI ain't everybody's cup of tea. For me personally, there's a lot of stuff that I would freak out about that I would never let see the light of day, that other people don't have that level of, what I mean? Don't have that level of whatever you want to call it. And that's fine. If that works for them, that's cool. It's just like a lot of people may say things about, and I won't shout him out, but a lot of people might say things about content that a specific really, mega successful person makes that's it's not their cup of tea. But I would never shoot him down because he's employed a lot of folks, and a lot of what you said, a lot of people are making their dreams come true. And if that's their dream, who the hell am I to knock that? You know what I mean? I wouldn't do it. But because I wouldn't do it doesn't mean that they shouldn't. You feel me? And if I don't want to see it, then I don't turn it on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said that, because I was gonna say in that vein, like I don't know, it's like the algorithm that seems to always come up that we may be in as it relates to TUBI. But on TUBI, are there films that are like that you could go to and you'd be like, this is in documentary form. This is a Schindler's List quality type film or whatever. This is something with some substance, not just because, let's be honest, TUBI has like a lot of ratchet type films. I like ratchet films, but I watch it for what it is. It's like I don't watch Belly and be like, this is brilliant cinematography, the storytelling is great. Or turn on Shotters and be like, yo, he needs to win an Academy Award. I watch him at face value, but I don't know. I'm not that deep into the TUBI world to know, like, does TUBI have, like content that's like really I won't say polished, but just, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, they got things that are bigger budget on there. Just so y'all know, TUBI is owned by Fox.
Okay.
I never know.
So that some would argue that that is a business model that Fox has done before. Is kind of like
poison the hood.
Remember the
culture
WP?
content that may not be of a certain budget level, and then build it up. And then once they get to a certain status, then they dead all of that stuff, and then generate what are higher end sort of projects. So once I found that out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I see what this is. So I don't knock it. Like if you can leverage something on TUBI, do what you got to do. But yes, there is some things on there. There's some friends of mine actually that have done some low budget stuff, but just because it was low budget, it was definitely high quality. They made they whatever little money they have work. So there's a lot of that on there, and then there's just some stuff that they just licensed and be like, we're licensing the Terminator or something like that. Like there's a lot of that stuff that's on TV too. So it's not just
Ratchet.
right. Ratchet movies. Like there's some stuff on there.
So let me ask you, and maybe it's just in the same vein. So what in your opinion makes great content? Is it low hanging fruit? Is it fact based, non-fictional, or is it a mixture of both?
Well, one of my mentors in the game kind of told me in plain language, and that's the thing I've always run with, is that the story is everything. So as long as your story is strong, you may not have the best lighting, you may not have the best audio, you may not have the best camera equipment, whatever the case may be.
Right.
People will fuck with it. You get what I'm saying? So how many times have you watched stuff on YouTube that may be like, this ain't no Spielberg like quality or type shit. This ain't no Spike Lee type stuff. But you into it because you mess with the story. You feel me? So if the story is strong, everything else can kind of suffer and it still be okay because you have a story that people can get emotionally invested into. So it doesn't matter what the format, whether it's doc, whether it's scripted, whether it's animated, anything. If you have a story, people can gravitate towards it.
And that's funny you say that, because my next question was, how important is it when you're putting out content, especially about yourselves or reflecting yourself? How authentic should it be, and how great should the story be? And yeah, I guess you just answered that. You should have a good story behind it.
It always should be a good story. As far as authenticity goes, to me that's a hack to get people quickly emotionally invested. Like you go with something that you know, which you know can be authentic, which people can always tell. They may not know what quality camera you're using, or this is the wrong type of mic, or whatever the case may be, but people can smell bullshit. So if you know what I mean? So if you know, the authenticity is just an easy way to escape people's bullshit radar. And the reason why I'm saying it like that was like everything should be authentic. Everything is not authentic because sometimes it's just fantasy and you just want to tell a dope story. They ain't got shit based in reality. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of stuff that I watch that's like that. So when that's the case, then it's a harder plane to get across to get people to buy into whatever that fantasy is. But that's when your storytelling skills really have to be strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So one of the things you always see, like artists look at paintings different and musicians listen to music different. When you look at films or you look at different things, what are the things you're looking for, and what really grabs you when you actually watch something?
That's a good question. I think for me, storytelling aside, there's got to be something in whatever that medium is that connects with me, and I can kind of speak to it. So, for instance, if I'm looking at a painting, for instance, I saw I was in this, I forget the name of the museum, but there were some Basquiat's in there, and one specifically spoke to me, and it was because he had like he had some numbers in a unique shape, and just the way that it was done kind of reminded me of my childhood. So there's an instance relatability for me. So I think, to condense that answer, it would be, something that is relatable, whatever it is, because it doesn't have to be something that's happened in my life, but it can be something that can connect with some portion of my life. And it doesn't matter what it is, like I said, I like a lot of stuff that is like sci-fi or fantasy or those
Star Wars fan, ain't you, bro? I see you put a lot of Jedi out there, kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Content. I think we live in a content-driven time where everything is about content, but I kind of feel like over the years, the term content has become it's loose, meaning like what actually constitutes content. And I'll give you an example. Like I watch a lot of YouTube, and there are people that call themselves content creators on YouTube, but the only thing they do is go live and ask for money, or on Instagram and ask for money. And to me, I'm like, does that really constitute content? Like, what constitutes content? Like, who's the gatekeeper that says that, all right, this is content, or is going live asking for money content? And I mention that because we were just talking a few minutes ago, and we were talking about story, right? And telling a story. And I think people sometimes do that, and they believe that they have content, but what they don't really realize is, like, I believe that people can be the story and not realize that they actually are the story, if that makes sense. Almost as if people tune in because for the histrionics of seeing somebody be like, I got to get this money. I want this money. Give me this money. Have you ever seen this, Snypes, though?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a lot of people that's on like Twitch and YouTube Live and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Instagram Live.
Yeah, I think let's be clear. It's always been a content ever since since beginning of time. Content has always been a thing. It's just never been phrased as content. Okay. I think the difference is of what we're all seeing is that, to your question, there is no gatekeepers anymore. Not like how they were positioned before. So there's a lot less barriers, which is why you're seeing a lot more content. And in my opinion, a lot of that shit ain't good. You know what I mean? It just ain't for me. Like, this ain't for me. I don't know what that is, but that ain't for me. And I'm good with that because there's a lot less gatekeepers. But on the flip side, because there's a lot less gatekeepers, there's some dope stuff that's out there that would have never got out there if there was, these gatekeepers sort of in play. So I think this era is more so the getting rid of the gatekeeper, if anything. But content has always been a thing. And niggas back in, Eastern Africa was writing some hot shit on a papyrus and shit, and that shit's getting passed around. You know what I mean? Oh, we gotta save this in the library. This is fire. That's content. You feel me? Like, content has always been a thing. It's always been a way. It's a tool, and it's a powerful tool. And a lot of times that tool gets abused for selfish reasons. People push narratives, all other kind of, some people like to call it agendas, whatever the case may be. And then some people just want to tell dope stories, whatever the medium is. Like, I painted this artwork, or I sculpted this, or I shot this dope movie or TV series, and I'm just gonna upload it on YouTube. I don't have to go to this major distributor, and I can spread it by word of mouth or however my hustle is in order to get some eyeballs on it. So I think that's the only thing. But content's been around forever, and I used to feel that way. Like, the word is really abused. Like, everyone can kind of fucking say, "Yo, I'm
gonna say right now."
Yeah, and technically they're right, but then it's like, who's really seeing your stuff, dog? And if you know, and if it is a vibe and it's just something that I'm rocking with, then regardless, then you got an audience for it. So if you got an audience for it and you got content, I can't be mad at that. There's a lot of people that you describe that get online and ask for money. There's some that do some things in exchange for that money. Cool. That's what you want.
Cool. Scam and extortion and stuff.
Right. There's a lot. You know what I mean? Or I'll show a body part here. I'll show a body part here. Make sure you tip the queen. You know what I mean? Like whatever. Hey, that's what you want to do. That's all good. Me, that's not my vibe. That's not what I do. I'm very more driven with paying attention to a lot of details and really pushing narratives that either I feel strongly about or I just know it's something that is a story that needs to be told, and I will facilitate a person that does feel strongly about it to get that story out there.
Yeah. With the I mean, think about it, like with the accessibility now to actually get content out to the masses. Like I said, you could literally have a phone and go live and boom, I'm a content creator. One of the things that I look at though is like, and it's almost like in the same vein, the name of the podcast, No Ideas Original, is that I feel like even not only at the YouTube, TUBI level, even when you look at like Hollywood, a lot of the same stories seem to keep getting told over and over again, which is interesting because you have everybody who has the ability to be a content creator now. So why do we keep getting the same story over and over again? And even if you think, let's look at like these horror movies, like they'll make the same. How many Batman reboots we got already? How many 13 reboots we already got? How many whatever it is?
Again, worse, they got a Karate Kid one coming out now.
Where are the new ideas with all of these content creators available? Like we got people that create content, but they be like, you know what? I'm gonna do the same shit this person did.
Hey, remixing, yo.
Right. So there's a couple of ways to approach, I guess, that answer. From a very like meta point of view, there's a lot of academics and philosophers say that there's only 7 story structures.
Okay.
And everything that you watch falls under one of those categories. So there's that. I don't necessarily agree, but I kind of do because it's never failed when I've seen it. That could just speak to that people just stick to those categories, and maybe there's I'm definitely seeing people push the envelope to try to break free of those chains. But those gatekeepers kind of look for those formulas, if you will. So there's also that. And a lot of people that are gatekeepers are not necessarily creative. They're just more analytical than anything. So they're just looking at 1 + 1 = 2. So if you got 2 putting those ones together, then I got ones just like that, and I'm gonna put that together, and hopefully I get the 2 just like you got the 2. So there's that. But creativity is never that. So that's doomed to fail, and that cannot be sustained if that is your point of view. Like we see that same thing with sports. Like people do the same thing, analytics. There's a way to use analytics to bolster what you're doing, but not as a crutch. If you ain't got that eye, if you don't got that gut on whatever it is that's creative, then something's going to fall apart when it comes to that. Like if nobody's on your team about that, you should have somebody on your team that yes is about the numbers and the analytics, but then if it's something that's creative, then the creative needs to handle whatever that creative aspect of it is and let them rock with what that is. And too many of the time, the numbers people or the people that have aspirations that feel strongly about creative, a lot of times there's a clash of opinions, and whenever you have more than sort of one brain when it comes to a project, it's going to kind of look like that. And a lot of those reboots that you're talking about is people doing that. And that's why a lot of times the shit doesn't resonate, because it's like, that's not that person's thought. It's not this person's thought. This looks weird. It looks haphazard. Everyone's kind of shitting on Madam Web that kind of dropped out, even the cast itself. And that's kind of from what's being described, that's a big example of just interference from all over the place. And you end up coming up with a shitty story. And just because you slap Marvel on it or you slap Spider-Man affiliation doesn't mean that people are going to be like, all right, let me go watch. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. But I think, I think there are people that are pushing the envelope with that. And I think even if you stay in those separate structures, it's just, there's still different ways to move it along. And there's ways to kind of genre bend or take parts of one structure and sort of have a fusion with another and find a unique way of storytelling. I know I've tried to do that on occasions, and sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's sort of where that's going. But people are always going, whenever there's money involved, people want to hedge their bets, and they don't want to take as much of a risk. Yeah, and creativity is the exact opposite of that. So you're always going to have a conflict when it comes to that. It's very yin and yang when it comes to that.
No, I was trying to think. As you were saying, I was thinking, what's the last great story, that was told in a movie, you know? And when I say story, when I say story, I mean, I've seen movies that I'm like, this is a good movie, but the story wasn't compelling or anything different. So I'm just
what made it good then?
I think what made it good was probably the actors, probably whatever action was in it. But as far as like compelling story, it wasn't a story that I haven't heard before. Like, to me, there are certain actors or actress that play the same role over and over again. Like, look, I'm from the Bronx. I love Jennifer Lopez, but I feel like every movie she does, it's the same movie.
Yeah.
Every movie she's in, I'm like, this is the same movie. It just got a different name, whatever. So it's sometimes it's hard for me to really watch a movie and be like, be drawn in on a story and be like, this is really a compelling, different story that I haven't heard before, you know, like, and I've even gotten to the point where I can appreciate, I've heard this story before, but it's told a different way, or told from a different perspective. But what I see though like I said, a lot of the same stories being told over and over again. And I don't know, and I wonder if that's the reason why, like, that reality TV has kicked up also, because people are like, yo, there's no script associated with it. All we got to do is put some alcohol, put people in a position to act crazy or whatever it is, and it's sort of unpredictable and the personalities come alive or whatever. But again, like, if you think about that, like, what's the last great story that you could actually attach to a movie and be like, yo, that's a hell of a story. I didn't hear that story before.
Okay, so that's kind of two parts. One, I'll address the reality thing. Chaos is chaos, and story is story. So I would argue that a lot of the reality shows that people are really resonating with are the ones with a good story. Oh, this person is connected with this person, but they're cheating with this person. There's a whole intricate thing. And a lot of friends of mine that I know that are producing reality TV, the successful ones, they have their story arcs. That's part of their meetings, is to have a story arc. So while it seems like it's chaos, and maybe some of them are produced in that way as far as the filming goes, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna give them alcohol, but I'm gonna put the bug in the air, like, all right, this is what's happening for this. Go. And then when I get into the edit, I'm gonna chop that shit up so that it feels like a cohesive story and people can follow along. But that's just the approach with that. but I would argue that you still have some of the same story principles in that.
You know what I'm sorry not to cut you off, but you know what the story is? All of them, women, black women fighting each other.
Yeah.
Nah, because there's a lot. That's because that's the ones we seen because we black. But there's a bunch of other shit like the basketball and all of that shit where it's, you know what I mean, ain't got shit to do immediately with our culture, but they acting a fool the same way. We just don't watch that shit because it's not popping up in our algorithm. So I really want to plug that up and be like, we're just sensitive to it because of our history and what we are and sort of. But that's not the only messaging that's out there. Well, I'm gonna keep it a buck with that. There's plenty of ratchet shit. Well, Honey Boo Boo was not was not black. There's so much, you know what I mean? Like boxing and all that stuff. That and it had shit to do immediately with our culture. So you know, that narrative that is just us putting out trash.
No, a lot of people put out trash.
Right, exactly. So everybody doing it. So I'm not mad if you getting a check. Get a check again. I can't sit here and police people of what to watch and tell them, nah, you should be watching this shit because this shit is fire. If it's fire, then your eyebrows gonna come to it. I'm just gonna let the content speak for itself. You do what you got to do when it comes to that. But so that's one thing, and I think just because there's those 7 sort of archetypes when it comes to stories, and we've been watching it for a while, it just comes with age after a certain point. And if you really study that shit, everything is going to seem the same. Matter of fact, people are going to start seeing the same. There's a lot of shit I'll be seeing now, like even with my kid, and I'll be like, watch what's going to happen this week. It's going to be this person. Because it's the, you know what I mean? That's just experience. So you're going to, I piss people off all the time and I try to mute it because if we're watching the show together, I'm sitting here quoting lines. My family, I irritate them all the time because I'll sit there and say the lines before it happens because I know, all right, watch, this person is going to be the spy. And because I ruined it in the first 5 minutes, you know what I mean? But I already know what to look for. So it's even worse with me because this is my passion and I like, every time I watch content, I'm like breaking it down in my head. Be like, oh, okay, I would have did this differently. Oh, I love the way they approach this. As far as the last good story, I don't know. I've been consuming a lot of stuff as of late. I think what comes top to mind was the what was it? It was a disaster movie. They said like the Obamas produced it. It was, you know, there was like is it No World Left Behind or something? I don't know.
The movie on Netflix?
Yeah, I know what you talk about. Yeah, with the planes crashing into the sand and stuff.
Like how warfare, modern warfare could sort of happen now. I thought that was dope.
The cyber warfare, if things
with the Teslas crashing into each other.
And just how easily, you know, the switch can be turned. I thought that was a really dope story. You know what I mean? It wasn't super predictable, but the beats kind of felt familiar. You know what I mean? And I think that's a good trick for content. Like if you have familiar beats so that people can be okay, because a lot of times we say we want different shit, and then when I give y'all different shit, y'all be like, what the fuck is this? I want what I want. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of times people be like, oh, I'm tired of whatever it is, but you give them something different and they're like, I don't know what this is. Like one show I like, Atlanta. Not a lot of people like it because they be like, yo, what am I watching here? It's different. Like, but it's well made and there's a good story in there, but it's different. And some people just like, nah, I don't want that. I don't know what that is. So that's always a challenge too, is that, you kind of want to give people something different, but then a lot of times people are familiar with stuff. I mean, we have racism because people can't handle shit different. You know what I mean? So if I can't give you content a lot of times that is so off base because it's human nature that starts getting infected after a while. So it's like you got to hit certain beats to keep people familiar, but then figure out what that balance is to keep it fresh, if that makes sense.
Copy. Burn.
Here's an unpopular narrative. You're involved with the HBO documentary Big Love, and that not being such a popular topic, very unpopular narrative, polygamy. You know, how was it directing a frowned upon lifestyle to a general audience like that?
Okay, so I wouldn't say it was frowned upon. There's some people that I think from an American standpoint of view, it's from an American point of view, it's frowned upon.
From a Christian standpoint, because America is a Christian country, so it looks like that from a Christian or American.
Right. And just as a caveat, I was just a producer on it, not a director, and it was it's for the documentary, and not the scripted series. So what we did was we went to Utah to document some of the real life polygamists and then contrast it with what was happening on the scripted HBO show.
Gotcha.
And so to answer your point, is like, okay, we actually went to the streets and see how people felt about it. Like, is this accurate or not? Does this feel like it is a vibe? And a lot of the real folks are like, nah, this is way off. And you make your own opinion, and I'll still stand by it. But you start seeing a lot of similar beats, and you're like,
right. This ain't that unpopular.
Right. This kind of seems like this is exactly what the hell they were talking about. And I learned a lot of stuff, like, you know, the whole thing with, like, I think that is a certain version of polygamy that is why a lot of people are against it, because there is not a lot of free will, and there's not a lot of being honest when it comes to that. There's a lot of polygamy. Right. There's a lot of polygamy in Asia and Africa, and everybody's on board because everybody knows what their role is, and everybody's straight up. They're like, yo, I got 7 wives, but each of them all got a duty, and I got to bust my ass and make sure I provide for these 7 wives. Yeah. And it's a sign of status with me, and that's the way I live my life and my culture. So that's a whole different ball of wax other than, hey, you know, we have a book and there's, you know, pictures of young girls in there that's about to come of age. And if you're holier than thou and pay your right tithes, you could potentially have one of these as your brides. That's, you know, that's a different thing. Yeah, and there's some folks that practice that, and that was kind of disturbing. And, you know, and doing that in the name of religion always sort of irks me, because it's like there's nothing godly about any of that.
Yeah,
any of that. So, but yeah, that was it. Was I like the fact of the education of it, even though there was a lot of stuff I saw and didn't agree with. And me personally, if I saw something firsthand that was just straight up illegal, then it would have been on me to be like, nah, that's the one time I'm like calling the authorities. Be like, nah, this is why. Yeah. But a lot of that stuff is protected because of certain laws and how certain things are done. And it's like you got the police or FBI or whoever it is got to be savvy enough to catch them so that they don't fall in whatever loophole it is. The whole thing, but
polygamy is taking on a new wave, so to speak, in younger people. They just want to live out their wild oats. They don't really want to institute the constitution of polygamy. They just want to wild out and freak off. Polygamy does have its benefit. You're thinking community versus individualistic. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
A lot of time in this society we're in, no one's thinking communal.
Right.
That's what's piquing people's interest to work collectively versus working individually. So I find that's like, oh, man, brother worked on a polygamy joint. Let me
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, that specific thing has it ties with like Mormon culture and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was definitely an educational thing, and that's what's in it for me. It's like I'm learning also as well as I can sort of spread the word on what this actually is. Good, bad, and different. And I love making it so that the audience decides. I don't ever want to inflict my opinion when it comes to documentaries like that on you. I'll let you decide. If it looks crazy to you, then that's what it is. If you say, oh, this is dope, then that's what it is. But I'll leave it to you with the facts. And if you feel some type of way watching it because I just laid out facts, then that's something you got to sort yourself out with.
You got to do your own research. That's a fact.
So,
yeah, for sure.
So coming from a music background, this is what's interesting. You know from work doing the music thing that the whole thing was getting with the major label and being independent or something. So you just talked about working with HBO as opposed to other projects. I got kind of like a two-part thing. It does it parallel the music industry, like people trying to get to the big fish and doing things independently, and talk about like how hard it is or what it's like to actually get into being a producer and stuff like that. Because I think when I think about what you're doing, I don't see it as like some wide open thing where everybody, the doors are wide open and it's easy to get involved and get the roles of the type of jobs that you have.
It's not easy, and I think any career field that's worth a damn is not going to be easy to get into. Period. Yeah. Whether it's gatekeepers or whether it's usually, yes, there's some gatekeepers here and there, but there's also the grind that a lot of people are just not for because it's not your passion. If you're really passionate about something, the grind is going to be there. It's going to take its toll, but you're going to keep getting up and showing up every day because you love whatever that is, fill in the blank. And for me, it's content. So there's a lot of times where there is downtime and it's like, I don't know when I'm going to get the next thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, I was worrying for nothing. It was just other people, whatever, the right timing for the right thing. And it's always happened that way. It's like every time I thought I was going this way, okay. Every time I'm going this way, it ends up going in a better way that I wouldn't even thought of.
Nice.
Right now, there's an animated series that I'm developing right now that I'm really excited about. Can't talk too much about it, but it's a grind even now. It's a grind even now to, with this particular project, it's going to involve some gatekeepers sort of flipping the switch to get the distribution on that I want. So it's always going to be difficult. It's always going to be hard. But to me, that makes it worth it because it also eliminates a lot of the fluff when it comes to a certain bar that you're trying to reach when it comes to your content. Is it the same as the music business? There's a lot of similarities. A lot of bullshit, a lot of weirdos doing weird stuff. But there's a lot of good folks also as well that want to create a different environment of just being dope. Because at the end of the day, if you can facilitate a lot of dope people, that's more money in your pocket too. And there's a couple of people that realize that. And there's a lot of people that don't necessarily get that. They think the old ways is sort of how you're supposed to approach things. So I think there is a lot of similarities. I kind of left the music biz because it was just, I guess at the time, at the age I was just really impatient. I'm like, I know how, I know what I can do and y'all just not seeing it. And I didn't really know or have the resources at the time on how to really flip it independent. Like I tried, like I even like bought like they were CDs at the time and like trying to figure that, selling that hand to hand. And I was like, this ain't working. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And so I'm like, I'm busting my ass, but then I'm talking to people that are in the TV business at the time, and they're like, I'm doing 1/4 of the work that you're doing, but I'm getting 4 times as much the money that you're getting. And I'm no math genius, but I know that's way more than what the fuck I'm getting. So I'm like, let me leave this shit alone, because I can always express myself musically, and even the stuff that I do visually, if it calls for it, I can just create the music for it. You get what I'm saying? So like this project that I'm developing, I'm actually running a lot of the music for it, because there's a way that I'm addressing this narrative that I know the kind of music that is needed, and I can easily compose that music for it. So it was never a loss. It's never a loss if that's what you do. In other words, you know what I mean? So the business might be weird or messed up, but eventually at some point something's got to give, and you'll get to where you need to go.
So that's actually pretty good. So what you're basically saying is that the grind thins the herd too.
Yes, it does. It does. It does.
That's
it
good.
does. But you can't get frustrated when somebody from the portion that you may believe should have been thinned out just pops out of nowhere and gets way ahead of where you at. You can't look at that, because that's not your story, that's not your thing, that's not who it's for. You don't know what that person does. Like I said, there's a lot of weird motherfuckers. So that person may have signed on for some weird shit that you have no visibility on. So you don't know how that person got there. So you just got to do what you feel is right. Push forward. You get what I'm saying? So I learned that pretty quick. I'm like, how the fuck did he ain't nowhere as good as me, or she ain't nowhere as good as me, or whatever the case may be. And then you get the folders and you like, oh, this nigga did some weird ass shit.
Yeah, but you know what the other thing though is that not everybody is process oriented. Like there's some people, like you mentioned, like, with the music stuff, after a while you became impatient. I think I don't feel like not everybody appreciates the process. Like you're a creator. So part of it is you're creating because it's a passion for you to create. So the success is in that, like the creation. But some people are so driven by what they believe the accolades should be as a result of what they created. Like, I made this film, should have did 100 million at the box office, or I put this album out, it should have went platinum, and they lose sight of, the fact that you actually put the album out, your whatever you were experiencing, whatever was going on in that moment was captured in that album or that film, or, and I think that if you're a person that you're not actually passionate about whatever the art is, it's easy to become impatient and not be process oriented, because you're just thinking about what the potential gain or windfall is as a result of whatever it is you're doing.
Right. I agree. And I think sometimes it's you also maybe not mature or don't see things for what it is. You know what I mean? To me, it almost sounds equivalent to like, relationship. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're just in it for the money, or they supposed to look a certain way or do a certain thing, it ain't going to work after a certain point, because there's no real love behind it. But if shorty gets fluffy, she's out, you know what I mean, and you still like looking at her like day one, you know what I'm saying, it's going to work, you know what I mean, if y'all treating each other the same way. So to me it's kind of similar to that, you know what I mean. Like there is a level of people don't appreciate the process because they're not passionate, but then they also may be just young. There's a lot of young creatives in there. A lot of people just felt entitled. I know to a certain point, I know because of the work that I did, I felt entitled to a certain thing. And that should never be the case. To your point, that should never be the goal. And I kind of had to grow up to understand what I'm actually looking for, what I actually want to see for myself. You feel me? So there's differences when it comes to that. I don't think it's just as straight cut and dry, but I agree with you though. A lot of people just don't want to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was what was the moment you had that shift where your mindset switched, as you know, in terms of how you begin to look at it?
Because I thought after I thought after I worked with HBO that I would just be like Spike Lee level status after that. Like
That was the
I
boost.
worked for the best network. You can't tell me shit. Like you know what I mean? But that was great to have a little confidence or whatever, but you know, it still required a level of working that I kind of had to have that humility and sort of learn that grace. And then I was fortunate enough to have some sort of heavy hitters be mentors to me. And, you know, a key thing, I'll never forget, her name is Stephanie Gale, and she's, you know, I looked up to her a lot, and she gave me a couple of my first opportunities, and she's somebody that like is done amazing. Like 1 year of her resume is just like better than most people's entire career. But she told me like in order to lead, you have to serve. You have to know how to serve in order to lead. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And I had to like really think about that. And like ever since that, I think when it clicked for me what that means, I started going crazy. Like I started going crazy, and I'll forever thank her for that one little key of advice that she gave me, and me taking that and sort of running with that. Because that's everything. It's like there's a level of relatability with that. Like if you're trying to lead people, how are you going to lead them if you don't know what it is they do or what it is that they want, what their motivations are? You can't lead people like that. You can't lead people to say like, I want to lead and I'm the person that can do it because I'm the dopest. That's not what it should be for, how it should be leveraged. And you know, as we talked about earlier on in the stream, right? Like we were talking about like, why do I do all of these different sort of duties when it comes to like creating content? And you know, that's sort of the underneath philosophy behind that as well. It's like I want to know what the editors do. I want to know what the lighting person does. I want to know what the DP does. I want to know what this musician does. I want to know how they're doing this. Because if I do get the privilege of leading a team in that regard, I want to be able to communicate with them. Because that's always the biggest skill when it comes to any sort of leadership role. If you can't talk to motherfuckers, then what is the point? How are they going to follow you? How are they going to lead you? Whatever the case may be. And some of my biggest blunders have been when I haven't been able to communicate.
Wow.
So I would say that. I would say that when I turned the corner.